Hello, El Presidente Tel here, and this is a video mainly to the user Reposoul1 because I felt that merely writing a comment wasn't going to be enough. I had to kind of outlay my views a lot more detail than the comments would allow. Firstly, and it's going to sound like I'm being a grammar fascist, but you really could have used a spell check, pal, because I struggled a little bit to kind of get this at first. But to take each of your points in detail, what about the billions the government are spending on Afghanistan and Libya? Well, the Libyan thing I agree with. I agree with the humanitarian intervention effort in Libya to avoid the mass murder of civilians by an evil dictator. Something this country's been lacking in the past, and it's about time we stood up and accepted that we can take responsibility to end brutal genocides around the world if we had the guts to do it. Afghanistan, given your later views about Islam, I figured you might be in favour of the war in Afghanistan. That's where we're dealing with Muslim extremists over there before they come over here, and more so helping build a moderate regime in the country of Afghanistan so we don't have to deal with people like the Taliban and Al-Qaeda again. So I find it kind of strange that you would use that as a criticism of my costing of the marches, that you would be against the war in Afghanistan. But seeing as you're the kind of person who, looking at your page, would subscribe to a user by the name of Melanoma321 or something, who is a rabid EDL supporter, and Al Jazeera, the mouthpiece of the Middle East. This shows that your views don't necessarily reconcile all the time, and I mean, maybe you're keeping an open mind, I'm not sure, but it just seemed interesting that you would do that. If I got out on the streets and see what a shithole England is becoming, you might have a different opinion about why the British working class and standing behind the EDL. What makes you think I'm not working class? Is it because I speak properly? Is it because I'm educated? Because I've got news for you, I am working class. In fact, I come from Waltham Forest, one of the boroughs where the EDL were going to march. And I can tell you right now, I might be British and I might be working class, but I do not support the EDL, and I will not stand with the EDL. And I'll give you some reasons. Firstly, they're a gang of convicted criminals. And I'm not just making that a libel. Their leader, Tommy Robinson, aka Stephen Yaxley-Lennon, which is his real name, has just been convicted of a brawl involving 100 football fans between Luton Town supporters and Newport County, chanting out EDL till I die, given a 12-month community rehab order and a 3-year ban from football by the magistrates. He has to do 150 hours unpaid work and 650 in costs. He denied the charges but was convicted, instead putting himself as a political martyr, saying he's being done for what he's saying rather than what he's doing. The man can't even accept the fact that he's being tried for something outside of football. But he was the one who started chanting EDL till I die and shouting on EDL. This is a man who is known for violence. He was convicted back when he was a member of the BNP for kicking a police officer in the head. And his girlfriend at the time, his partner, was charged with possession of cocaine. She said she was getting rid of the packets before her parents found them, which means one of the two of them, or their associates at the time, were on cocaine. So, because you don't just have that kind of stuff knocking around the house. And then if you want to talk about, the fact that when the EDL stand up for their country and they're patriots, they're racist. Okay, they're patriots. What kind of patriot incites a riot? Liam Wood, head of the EDL's Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual and Transgender League, put on his Facebook page, and I'll leave a link to the picture, "Anyone up for a riot round these parts? Spread the word, we'll meet up at Hampson's on Abingdon Street. Am up for it if others are." This is a member of the EDL, ladies and gentlemen, a supposed non-violent organisation encouraging civil disturbance and violence against businesses. Let's go to, this is Plymouth's website, the local Plymouth newspaper, where a Kurdish family were forced to barricade themselves inside their kebab shop as a mob shouted racist abuse and threw glasses through the door of the kebab shop. The glass smashed on a counter very close to a baby in a car seat in the shop. 4 of the 5 members of the family had to push against the shop door to stop a similar number forcing their way in, as the group had been walking down the street from the Wild Coyote shouting EDL, EDL. Let us not forget, of course, the regional organiser of Plymouth, or one of them, Hayley Wells, also known on the Facebook group as Princess Combined Ex-Forces Angel Plymouth, who was convicted of putting high-tech computers that didn't exist, iPads to the rest of us, for sale on eBay and then pocketing the cash when people bid on them. So you see, Reposoul, I don't support the EDL because they're a bunch of criminals, and for their views, which also help. A group of people that defend the riots. You know, they try and say they're defending the riots. I have a story here from the Telegraph I'm going to put up, and you can see the pictures from South London where a group of people who were said by the police to have been chanting EDL, EDL at the time were throwing bottles at the police. This is a group whose members of the Jewish Division, upon hearing that the children, the youth group in the Labour Party in Norway, who were shot by Anders Breivik, had been discussing Palestine and a possible boycott of Israel, the EDL's Jewish Division wrote, "That explains the man's actions. Thank you for this. This exposes the scum for what they are." Which really shows how hollow Tommy Robinson's gesture to lay a wreath at the embassy of Norway was, and why they turned him away. As for your comment on Sharia law at the very end, people are called racists as soon as they stand up for wanting their own country to remain lawful and not under a 7th century ideology. 7th century ideology, I'm assuming. I'll point you to the United Shades of Britain website. I'll give you a brief précis of the article, however, if you can't be bothered, because I know a lot of people who already have their minds made up won't bother reading anything I've put down. But you obviously don't know much of how a law is made in this country, because you need to propose a bill, it needs to go to a reading, then a committee, then another reading, then it gets amended again, then another reading, then it goes to the House of Lords, then it gets amended there. All the stages from before happen again. It goes back down to the House of Commons. It gets voted on again. It's been voted on about 7 times by this point. And then it goes up to the Queen to become law. For Sharia law to take place in the United Kingdom, you would need at least 315 of the MPs in Westminster to approve Sharia law. As of this point, there are only 8 Muslim MPs, none of which support Sharia law. And effectively, supporting Sharia law would mean that adulterers like David Mellor and homosexuals like Simon Hughes would need to effectively agree to sign their own death warrants, which I don't think anyone is going to be willing to do. So, looking at it logically, the threat of Sharia law happening in this country is so remote it is almost statistically impossible. So I really don't see how your arguments are going to stand up to much when you look at it in those terms. And more importantly, a shithole England's becoming, and to be a patriot you're called a racist? Is it patriotic to kick in the windows of Asian businesses? Is it patriotic to go walking through predominantly Muslim areas, spouting racist abuse and fear and intimidation? Is it patriotic to call England a shithole? I might not support the EDL, but I adore this country. I don't think there's a better country yet. So do yourself a favour, mate. To quote the argument you lot like, if you don't like it here, why don't you go somewhere else? You're free to do so. Leave trying to make the country better for the true patriots. This is El Presidente Tel. Love, peace, liberty.